Barriers to the ballot box. With just 2 weeks left until Election Day, the topic of voter suppression and election protection is at a fever pitch.
Northwestern University researcher Tabitha Bonilla has been studying this issue. She's the Associate Professor of Political Science, Human Development, and Social Policy, and she is here with us at Ford. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tabitha, voter suppression has a long history in the United States. What is it about our system that allows this to happen?
I don't know if it's necessarily inherently baked into the system, but it's definitely historically a part of how voters have approached the polls, from exclusion based on a lack of property ownership to gender to race. I think there have been a lot of efforts to keep certain types of people away from the ballot box, and I think some of the most important ways to do this in the past have been poll taxes and literacy tests that were just impossible for people to pass. But they certainly look different today.
Right. One of those things that's updated for today, I would think, is misinformation. What sort of role is that playing in elections?
Yeah, for sure. I think misinformation can be when voters are told one thing. For instance, people might be able to see how they vote, or they're sent text messages to tell them that they're not eligible to vote. For instance, I think there was a wealth of text messages going around to college students who often have to vote remotely. And so, you know, if you tell them that they're not eligible to vote in this way, then that might keep them from actually participating in voting.
How effective are those measures?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to say. It's not like you can keep tabs on who gets what text message or what information people have. And the hard part is these measures tend to affect groups who already have a more difficult time going to the polls, right? So for instance, if you're thinking about how voter ID laws affect people who are less likely to have government IDs, right? These tend to be people who have less money, tend to be people who don't drive. Students already have a hard time voting because they're new to it. They might be far from where their residence is. So it's hard to tell how pervasive this is, but part of that's because who it's targeting.
Right, and who it's targeting, many of these people, truly of all, you know, no matter what your situation is, intimidation is real. And you may wonder if something's wrong, but you're not sure, and then that factors in. How is intimidation showing up in 2024?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think there are some ways in which it's coming from government sources in some cases. So there's an example in Texas. There's an organization, LULAC, who tries to help Latino voters get to the polls, register to vote, et cetera. And there have been some reports that the Attorney General there has raided the homes of LULAC members. So there's some questions on whether or not, you know, people who try to uphold integrity of the electoral processes also have been targeted during this election cycle.
The landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act removed a lot of barriers, but then there was a more recent Supreme Court ruling that altered that. So can you describe?
Yeah, in 2013. Yeah, it's. I think it relaxed some of the measures that tried to protect the ways in which the Voting Rights Act worked, and so it relaxed some of the requirements and proof that districts had to show. So this just weakened the act itself. So it still exists. It just lost its teeth to try and, you know, enforce the idea that all voters should have the same type of access to the polls.
Tabitha, can you leave us with one piece of advice as we prepare for these next 2 weeks or go in to, you know, cast our ballot? What should we be thinking about, or how should we approach the situation?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important, just first of all, to check that your registration information is accurate and valid. Here in Illinois, it's super easy to do. You can register right up until it's time to vote, but in other states you cannot. I think the other thing to just think about is if you hear something that doesn't seem to make sense, it's okay to reach out to your election officials and ask questions. Just make sure that what you're hearing is accurate and confirm it with people.
Great. Tabitha, we appreciate it so much.
Tabitha Bonilla, thanks so much from Northwestern University. Good to see you.
Thank you.